Hello, BookTube. We're back with another episode of Desert Island Books, and I have Mark Richardson here from Richardson Reads. Tell us about your channel a little bit and yourself, Mark.
Well, I've been on BookTube now just short of 6 years, and the channel is Richardson Reads. Um, I discuss a variety of things and have different projects during the year. This coming year, 2023, is going to be the Great Pirate Project. That's, from my perspective, for my part of it, has been mostly accumulating nonfiction works about pirates. And then each month I'll try to do a piece on that, do a video about whatever I've read. Some folks that are going to join in, and anybody can join in, obviously, you just hashtag it, are more interested in the fiction, which is fine. There's plenty of great pirate fiction out there, too. I think that we just did Treasure Island, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't get any better than that. So that's the two projects in it. And then ongoing projects I have is Patrick O'Brien. I have a video ready to go on Fortune of War, and I am just starting the Surgeon's Mate, which I believe is the 7th one. I'm close there anyway, if I'm not exact. So I live in Vermont. I'm a father of 3 children and lovely wife, and then I have a crazy, almost 8-month-old German Shepherd puppy, male, named Dixon, who has totally taken over the house. Knock on wood, though. He knows not to get near the books, because that would be the end of it. We wouldn't video that, but he's a good guy, but he's just huge. I think he's 90 pounds now. So
yeah,
he eats like he's 90 pounds. So I will be going into poverty as we speak.
Yeah, less books to buy.
Oh, somebody gave him a gift of one of those chew toys. Literally a half hour. Just
really, wow.
So I live in Vermont. We in a 200-year-old cottage with slopey floors and weird shaped architecture everywhere, but we love it. It's small, but and very wet, heavy snow outside right now. We had a doozy of a storm that I guess went all across the continent, and I think everybody contributed water to ours. So
yeah,
you've seen it where the branches get so heavy. That's where you really, So
it makes it look pretty, but it's not nice to be out in it. That's the thing.
And you worry about it a little bit. I mean, I saw the governor in New York when they had that big storm in Buffalo about a month ago, where they got like 5-6 feet of snow.
Yeah.
Which is just not good. I love snow and I love the winter, but that's rough. And they're warning people, you can't shovel this stuff. It's too wet and it's too heavy. And you have a couple of people that don't make it because of the heart or whatever. You're lugging that heavy snow around. It's probably not good for you. But.
Yeah. One thing I want to say is because your sound has gone crackly again, but I can understand you. I don't know if that's going to be recorded or not, but I just want to say that it should be fine throughout. But I don't know why it's been doing that occasionally with StreamYard now.
Okay. Well, your voice sounds perfect. It's coming across. Perfect.
So hopefully it records fine, because that can happen that way too. It records fine, but hopefully, because I noticed the last couple that I've done, for some reason there's been glitches, there's been sound issues, but like I say, before we started, your sound was fine, so.
All right, well, I'll enunciate. I do talk with pebbles in my mouth, so I got to be a little.
Well, I guess we can jump right in then with your first book and see what we got there.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with one. I'm sure I'm not the only one to do this. It's one of my favorites. I don't even know how many times I've read it. I actually started with The Hobbit when I was very young, and went into the Lord of the Rings, and then that time you were starting to have the publishing in the States where you get like what was it, Smith of Wooten Major and Farmer Giles Band. You get all the off books and eventually the Silmarillion. But as much as I love all that stuff, the original three, almost dropped it. So yeah.
Yeah, I have yet to read that, and I was slotted to read that in the new year, and I'm currently reading The Hobbit, and I'm not enjoying it. So I've sort of put breakers on that, and I'm slowly going to read it, and it depends on how that pans out. I don't know if I'm going to jump right in immediately to Lord of the Rings. I do know, and everybody says it's very different in tone and everything too. So, but I don't know if one I didn't quite like. I don't know if I'm going to jump right into it. I know that's heresy. Everybody loves The Hobbit. Everybody loves the Lord of the Rings, but I think it's partially the fantasy aspect that I just have difficulty with, and I always have. But yeah. So, but yeah, several have taken Lord of the Rings with them, and I have that edition as well. It was gifted to me earlier this year, I think. So that was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I read The Hobbit when, like I say, when I was young. So I don't know. I don't reread The Hobbit very often. I don't remember. I've probably been 30 years. So Lord of the Rings, I reread. Silmarillion. I know some people are really, really into Silmarillion. I'm not so much. I like it, but the Lord of the Rings itself, especially if you're on a desert island, right?
Yeah.
A little North Woods action there might not be a bad idea, especially on 3-day, right?
But yeah, they've come out now with a companion one, the same as that for the Silmarillion, I think, with its own illustrations as well, and. So if I do see, I mentioned to somebody that I found the Hobbit so far boring, and they thought, oh, I won't like the Lord of the Rings because he goes off on these tangents and does all this stuff, and I go, well, that's usually stuff I like in a book. Yeah. So I'm up in the air at this point, but it's only early days with The Hobbit as well, so I shouldn't really. I haven't made any decision whether I like it or I dislike it. It's just that it's not what I was hoping for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked through The Hobbit. It's nice to have The Hobbit in your back pocket, but it's not a big read.
Yeah.
To have it in your back pocket when you go into the Lord of the Rings. But I actually remember being shocked at how different the Lord of the Rings was from The Hobbit when I was a kid.
Yeah,
it's different. The whole tone, like you say, everything's different.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is that The Hobbit was written for 5 to 8 year olds or something like that, or under 10. And it's funny because I do know somebody personally that was in their late 30s when they read it, and they struggled reading it. They thought it was very difficult, and I'm going, it was written for children, but children. What?
Different generation.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. So anyway, let's move on to the second one. I guess we can hop into that.
In order, but some of these are so doggone big, it's hard for me to maneuver them. So I'm just going to grab them. So there's no order to this, right?
No, not really. Not unless you want it.
So this one here, I'm try to get rid of the glare. Figure if I'm going to be on a desert island, I might as well read this, right?
Yeah.
I've read so many and this is Beagle Hole is the biography of Captain Cook. I think he's from New Zealand or Australia, the author.
Yeah, I believe he is. Yeah.
And I've read like Alan Villiers, the guy who was famous for doing he was like one of the last of the the big ship guys. He did. I think he captained the Mayflower too, from England to the States when they built the replica. He did a life of Cook that I really enjoyed. I like anything of his. He's very prolific. He closely connected with National Geographic. And the other one, Alistair MacLean, the old thriller writer, really good Captain Cook. So a lot of people have done them. There's a lot around, but this is the definitive. And I thought on a desert island it'd be fun to get some of that in.
Yeah, I used to have that, but I never read it. I've got here somewhere. I've got a 2-volume of Captain Cook's journals, basically. It's somewhere. It's probably up there somewhere that you can't see. But I think, shown it on the channel at some point. But I remember reading that before. I don't think it's the complete one because I think more recently somebody's put out, or at least the Folio Society's done a nice job of one, but it's pricey. But yeah, that would be, that's the thing. It's a lot of their stuff. Some of it's affordable, and then some of them are just ridiculous.
You know, I have a really large Folio Society collection, and and I love their stuff. My Patrick O'Brien set's complete. The value on it's gone through the roof, but I don't buy from them anymore. Last set I got was the first 3 volumes internally chronological in the Bernard Cornwell Sharp series, and I know there's people out there make comments when I say this. I'm just not impressed. It's not like the quality I got with the Patrick O'Brien, and then they never continued it. And then even stuff that I know is really high quality, they price me out of the market. I mean, there's other things I can go get.
Well, going back to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, I always wanted a set of that, and it showed up at my bookshop here, and it's so cheaply made. It's paper covered boards. But people rave about it, and I'm going, it can't be the same, but it is. They're cheaply made. But some of them, like I do want to get the Dracula. I want to get the Dracula one that they've done. It's 70 or 80 pounds, but I do want it. That's the thing. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but and there's recently, have they done Jekyll? I think, no, wait a minute. They've done something that's really cool, but it's one of their limited editions. It's 800 and some pounds.
Not happening. It's just, for me, where I'm at, I can hunt down books and find treasures for $1.
Yeah.
When you give me a folio, I look through the Folio Society catalog and go, and then I'm not pulling the trigger. And like I say, I must have 150 of them. And it doesn't work for my Yankee mindset. I'm going to hold on to that money for water or something.
Well, especially when you're getting the Heritage Press ones, which are really nicely made.
Oh, they're one. Yeah, they're actually, I think, if I'm right, and you were a bookseller at the time when they were, you could fill a table with them pretty easy. Nobody was running to your door to get them. They're the reprint of the limited edition club.
Yes.
Oh, you'll see George Macy owned the companies. And so what you're doing is, for a good price, you're getting good paper, you're getting print you can read, that had some thought behind it. You're getting artists that were unbelievably good. And you're getting some of these titles, you probably wouldn't pick them now. There's the off title in there that you wouldn't pick now, but for the most part, you'd want them.
Yeah. And I think Easton Press have I think they've done from the limited editions club. Yeah. So there's a lot of their editions. I was just wondering with the sound with the thing, if you could, I wonder if just tapping the top of the thing, I wonder if that will do anything.
Is it going bad again?
Yeah. Let's try it again.
How's that?
Yeah. It might be better.
Right. See what happens.
Yeah, it's a bit better. It's strange. I don't know what's happening with this, but yeah, no, there's so many of the Heritage Press and all those, but yeah, no, I'd love to get that biography of Cook. I'd love to get a copy of that. I think it's pretty pricey now because if at all, it's available in a paperback, which will fall apart to try to read it. So yeah, well, that's enough talking about other books rather than the ones you've actually shown so far. So let's continue on.
Down here, you know, because we were going to do this a week ago or something.
Yeah.
Something happened today. I changed the pile of books here 4 times before you ever let me back on here. You know what I mean? There's no way to really, because you walk around a house full of books, you don't want to lose any of them. But,
Yeah.
So next one.
Yeah. Oh, Ascent of Wonder. Yeah.
I like the hard sci-fi. I like space opera, and I like all these things, and it would be hard to go without any of those. And I had to pick one volume, and the title, I've got other books by Hartwell. He's a bit of an opinionated fellow, but so am I.
Yes.
I just was going to read out. I know you know who it is, but for everybody else, Ursula K. Le Guin, of course, but Bob Hyland, Arthur Clarke, Hal Clement. We'll make somebody happy with that, won't we?
Yeah.
Asimov. Let's see. Kate Wilhelm. Again, let's see. C.M. Kornbluth, Ruddy Rucker, Larry Niven, John Campbell, H.G. Wells, J.G. Ballard, James Triptree Jr., Jules Verne, Rudyard Kipling. So that's, Phil K. Dick, William Gibson, David Brin, Werner Vinge, the list goes on and on. So, if people could stop the video if they really wanted to see it. But
yeah, no, it's a good collection. Like, I guess I love that one. But I also, I think one of my favorites you've got it as well, and I've just recently got it, is the Through Space and Time. I think it's the 1947 by Healy that was reprinted by. What was that?
I thought you got a great memory.
Yeah. But yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, my memory is shot now. But then somebody else was telling me that, I remember you said you had this copy of Paradise Lost at the Barnes and Nobles, wasn't it? You go, how do you remember that? And it's like, I can't remember what was said 10 seconds ago. But if you say something about a book, I'll probably remember it.
You're wired. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's that's probably the one. But even though I like that one, I've got to get the hard SF one. The other one, I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and because those are just great ones. And yeah, Hartwell, I liked Hartwell because he did have opinions, and that just reminded me. You've got the John Clute and Peter Nichols Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, and then there's the fantasy one that he did as well. Oh, you don't?
I wish I did. I never see it.
Yeah. I was reading something. Well, they've put the thing online now, but there's Q&As, and there's people that have asked, and why are you making opinions on this stuff? Like, why is there opinions in this thing? And it's like, that's what makes it interesting, because you may not agree with them, but you get an editor that gives their opinions rather than just, don't say anything whether they liked it or not, or how it fits into the history. And but people don't seem to like that anymore. They don't want opinions.
How do you engage with somebody who only agrees with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. The one I got into, the series I got into, actually Donnie who sent it to me, but it was after you told me about it, was that Mike Ashley, that the history of the, I've got the first 2 volumes. What's the title of it?
Yeah, the history of the science fiction magazine. But you've got, I think, the original, because there was original 4, and then now there's 5. The newest one was put out, but it's not an anthology anymore. Like, those were originally an anthology of stories, which is good to have it alongside the other ones. The other ones is all text of history, really, really dense, history of the magazines, and it's fantastic. And he's right up to 2020, I think.
I haven't read them. I've got them. He sent them to me over a year ago, and I've just buried, so I haven't gotten to them. But I walk by them and say, I got it, you know. So maybe this is a year, but I don't have the other three then.
Yeah, well, that yeah, like I say, you've got the original anthologies, and then I don't know if you've got the revamped ones that are just the history. Yeah, yeah, they're expensive. I think they're still in print, but the paperbacks are going to be the cheapest. The newest volume I think is like 80 or 90 pounds. Yeah.
I'll have to hope I find it.
Yeah, University of Liverpool. So
yeah, not likely I'm finding it, is it?
but yeah, I was reading, that just reminded me too. I was reading a couple of reviews in Foundation, the science fiction journal, and the complaint was that Mike Ashley was too opinionated on stories.
Why read him otherwise?
Yeah.
Yourself. Right. Yeah. You want a guide, you don't have to agree with him about everything.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and then like with people like that, you know that they know their subject. You know, you may not agree with them, but they know the width and breadth of their subjects, like John Clute and Mike Ashley and Hartwell. You know, he knew his stuff, and Gardner Dozois as well. They knew this stuff, you know, inside and out. So rather than somebody else that edits it and edits something and they hardly ever read anything. So what's the use?
I think I would go to any of those editors before I know I would be in good hands, and then I've disagreed with all of them.
Yeah.
You know, Oswald would pick stories. I'd say, well, you know, in his annual, I would never miss that annual. You know what I mean? I might with every story in there. He probably did. You know what I mean? He said, well, I'm adding it because it's important, but maybe he didn't even, you know. So there's those anthologies, and certainly a lot to the history of the sci-fi. You always come to history with a perspective anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like John Clute. I think I read one. I think he's done a sort of illustrated history of science fiction, an oversized one, and I don't think he's too complimentary of Dune. You know?
No, not everybody was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
I'm trying to make now. When do I get off the island?
There's nothing to state that. I was hoping to have some live ones where I pulled people back off the island and we could talk about it. But nobody's getting back to me for the first one, so I don't think that's going to happen. But you're doing the last one of the year, so you're too soon to get off the island. So it'll have to be sometime in January.
I was afraid you'd say, "Well, as soon as you're done with the books," and then I'm going to say, "Well, I should have picked, 5 Edgar Rice Burroughs paperbacks. I'd be happy." I didn't. This would be the next. Basically, because I love and this is an older edition, which I like, because I'm an older edition myself. And I like the footnotes, the history, the introductions, and I love the plays. Not all of them, but I like most of them. So if I'm stuck on a desert island, that'll be sort of a palate cleanser between the hard science fiction and the maritime history stuff.
Yeah, and I like the Riverside one. There's a few that I like. I like the Arden Shakespeare, which is nice, and I like the what is it? There is the there's a Globe, I think, one that they did, which is kind of interesting.
I haven't seen.
I think there is, and then there's the Oxford one that's quite nice too. Like I think there's about 4 of them or maybe 5 that would be nice to have side by side,
Right.
Because they're kind of nice. But I always ask, because Shakespeare has been popular pick for this. What is your favorite play that you've read so far?
Well, when I was young in school, when you have that class with the right teacher.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. And that teacher did Macbeth with us. So we read the play, and then we had a reel to reel and watch. I can't even remember which version it was of Macbeth, but we watched it. Never forgot the Three Witches. I just loved it. But the older I get, I read. We do the plays each year at the library, so I love The Tempest. But I think really right now, in first place would probably be Richard III.
Mm.
I don't know. Is it maybe because they dug him up in the parking lot? You got all the stuff you can find out about him. Then the Josephine Tay novel, remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The mystery where she says he was a good guy, and then the guy's in the hospital bed figuring it out. I can't remember the title. Something of Time, but
yeah.
And then I love Hamlet. Watching clips on YouTube of different people do Hamlet. One play that can just be 5 different people do 5 different ways, so that's fun. That's true with all of them, I guess.
Yeah. So was that your first sort of exposure to it? Was Macbeth at school? Yeah.
My son, who is 16 and typical, got stuck in a class this year, and his first introduction to Shakespeare was Romeo and Juliet. It did not go well.
No.
He was unimpressed. So we may have lost a Shakespearean scholar.
Yeah, mine, like I've said this over and over, but yeah, mine was Macbeth, and Macbeth at the moment is my favorite, and I'm going to be rereading it with somebody else. I have the Arden paperback of it.
Oh, I love the paperbacks. Yeah, we have some of those at the library. The Arden paperback.
I still like it the most, and I've said this several times, but for those who have heard it, they can fast forward. But it was like I took it in high school. I forget what it was, like grade 9 or grade. I think it was grade 9, and then I took summer school, and then we did Macbeth again.
Oh, okay.
And then I took the next grade in the regular school, but these were different schools, and we did Macbeth again. So I did Macbeth 3 in a row, 3 times.
Wait a minute, 3 in a row? And 3 witches might have had something to do with that.
Oh, possibly, yeah. But yeah, and then the next one we did was Hamlet. So after that, that's all I took through high school.
That's a good 1-2 punch, though.
Yeah.
Do it, for a young fellow, that's not a bad way to do it.
And I still love, and I'm going to be rewatching again. I love the 1950. I want to say 52, but it's probably 57. Orson Welles version. I love his version of Macbeth. It's so visually so stunning.
I need to watch that because I'm wondering if it's what we saw in school. So I would have been in probably 8th and 9th grade. I don't remember. And I'm 61, so it was a few weeks ago. So I don't remember what the video was or the reel. So
yeah, it could have been because it probably wasn't. At that time, they wouldn't probably do the Roman Polanski version.
It's probably not the name they were going to go for in my school.
No. Well, there's quite a bit of nudity in that as well, so they probably wouldn't have.
No. Yeah, you're talking rural New England in the 1960s. I just don't see it happening.
But yeah, and I love the BBC versions as well. Like I've mentioned that those are fabulous because you get actors that were predominantly known as comedians doing amazing parts, in those. And then I
don't know what access in the early 60s we would have had the BBC stuff over here. I know once that public television took off, of course, they mined BBC, right? They went out as much as they could, but this would have been earlier than that.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't have. They weren't done like these were done in late 70s or through the 80s, I think. But there were BBC radio productions of Shakespeare, and there's all sorts of other ones too. Like you've probably seen the records, the sets of the plays and that, and some of those are really good. I remember having a few sets of those, and I really, really enjoyed them. So when I say, like, I've never read every play, but I've probably listened to every play.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
which,
people did originally, right?
yeah,
The theater and sat down and listened to it. I don't know if they sat down. They stood up, most of them, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I want to start reading more of Shakespeare because, like I say, I'm just rereading Macbeth, but I got to start reading ones that I haven't read, and I'm not sure how many. Like I've read probably, I might have read 10 at the most.
That's about what I am. About the
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
So I do have to start reading some other ones, and I want to get a nice collection like that, a Riverside or something at some point. Because I was just going to look for my I'm not sure where it is, uh, the Arden Shakespeare. Yeah, I'm not sure where it is at the moment, but oh, there it is. It's kind of interesting because the play itself is not that long, but the introduction is 125 pages.
I find that useful. I like that. Yeah. They usually have really, they always have really good people.
Yeah. So the actual, it's the text, and at times there's the text of the play and there's the notes.
That kids to play.
So yeah, so that'll be fun. I'm hoping my brain starts working better, so I can start doing that next week.
Oh, all right.
Probably last week of or maybe later this week. We'll see. But yeah, okay. Well, that's enough Shakespeare because I've basically said everything that I've said in previous videos as well. So
Here's the next one. I know you've seen this before.
yeah,
Great. I'm just randomly open up. But it has enough text to make it worthwhile. And of course, if you're stuck on a desert island, you're looking at seashells all day, it might be nice to mix it up a little bit. So I have lots of art history. I've always enjoyed it. Grombeck's little fighting paperback. I still have that. I love that thing. I don't know why. It just fits in the hand right, and Pelican did that big series of art histories and
yeah,
all the standards. Timms and Hudson, I think. And
yeah. They've done series. Yeah, Oxford too. They've done a nice series. But yeah, the Jansen, that was my textbook in grade 13. It was used as a textbook, so I've got fond memories of it because I did enjoy it. And it was a lot of times that you see, because it'll have stuff from it'll have the harp from Sumeria or Babylonian stuff in there. And it was really because that's everywhere. Like they've been reconstructed, but I was able to actually see those at the Morgan Library in New York. They had it as a traveling thing, but that's 25 years ago. But that was fun.
Leonard Woolley, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've seen the picture. I mean, obviously, but I'd love to see it in person.
Well, that was the thing because I wasn't expecting it. A friend and I went into the library and to look at the Morgan Library, and then they were saying, "Oh, did you want to look at the art exhibit?" And I go, "Well, what is it?" And it was like, "Wow, I never expected it."
That's up your alley. You don't get better than that, right?
Yeah, no, it was all from like a lot of it's from the University of Chicago and everything too. So, but yeah, sorry, I'm getting away from the Jansen volume, but
yeah, no, I like to have the single volume. Obviously, like say, and the reproductions matter.
yeah.
It's never the real thing, but you gotta get close, So, but yeah, that's why I picked that one.
Yeah, the only thing is after I started reading more stuff, I found, well, with a lot of them, sub-Saharan Africa is almost non-existent in these, which is too bad because there's so much interesting artwork that just never gets the light of day, or hardly ever gets, or especially at that age.
Yeah, well, and if you do, it's like an aside in a Picasso biography, like he's hugely influenced. Well, then show me why he's influenced. At
Yeah,
least I had something to go on here, right? And that whole generation was. But we don't. We just hear the phrase that they were. I'm sure that's not true now as much as it was when I was younger. But I haven't reread some of that stuff in a long time. But yeah, I
yeah.
know. I, most of the African stuff I first got introduced to was because I was reading Brian Fagan,
Oh yeah, yeah,
great archaeology writer, and that's where he cut his teeth. He was trained in that. I mean, he went what was it, Oxford or Cambridge, I can't remember, but his field work was all in Africa before he branched out to the whole world, and maybe that's a good, you know. So
yeah. But yeah, good. There's a new one. It's kind of neat. It's edited by Graham Dixon. Was it Graham Dixon? He did a whole bunch of art documentaries for the BBC or ITV. I can't remember which. Graham Dixon something, I think. But he edited this massive volume. I've got it. It was only a couple pounds of the. It was a remainder thing, but it's only has paragraphs of stuff, but there's so much in there. Like, if you just want a spot little bit of something with a good picture, that had it. Like, I know where it is, but I can't access it. I just remembered it, and I thought it was pretty good, especially when I only paid like £3 for something that weighs 10 pounds in weight.
yeah, no, I love stuff like that. So
Yeah.
The next one is probably pretty standard. And again, now that I think that you're going to keep me on the island until I'm done,
Yeah.
I wanted to have variety a little bit. If I'm on an island, I don't want to read the same. I don't do that here. I bounce around. And there's a lot of good stories, and no matter how you take it, it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of good literature. There's certain lists that you don't want to read the 50th begat, but I would find it to dip in and out of. Now, I did 2 graduate degrees in this stuff, so I've stayed away from it for a while. It had enough, but on a desert island, it would be perfect.
So yeah, the idea for this, is also that you might be there for a long time and you might have to read this stuff multiple times.
That would work with this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It works, I guess it matters on your situation at the time, but yeah. Yeah, no, so there's lots of it I'd like to revisit. There's sections I haven't read in years. Stuff I've done in depth, like Isaiah and Jeremiah, that I've done in-depth studies of. But
I love Jeremiah. I love Jeremiah. I took, I didn't get a degree in it, but I did have to take biblical studies and biblical Hebrew as well. So I don't remember anything other than the alphabet. I'll remember that probably till the day I die, but I won't know how to read it anymore.
Right. Yeah. But where you were in the world, that made sense, right? You have to have context.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're reading older archaeology, that's just filled with that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, it's that was because I was doing Near Eastern. So, it's the foundation of it. Sometimes a little too much. It was the traditional way of doing it. And sometimes, especially, it depends on where you go. And thing, because you can do Near Eastern, but you might do sort of early Islamic, which has, crossovers, but not as much.
Yeah, I always I wanted to get there myself someday, but I never did. But I started when I was reading early on. It was, like Kathleen Kenyon and people like that, and so yeah.
Yeah, one of my professors, Dr. Toombs, Larry Toombs, he actually excavated at Jerusalem with Kenyon.
Now, if you put that in a novel, that your hero archaeologist was Dr. Toombs. Everybody tell you to tone it down a bit, okay?
Yeah, I know that was his name, and it's just fabulous, and we hit it off really well. Like I really liked him, and I think part of it was once he found out we had the same birthday, or at least in the same year. I mean, not the same year, but the same day. So and it's an unusual birthday, so not too many people have it. So, well, or they don't admit to it. April 1st. So.
Okay, my wife was supposed to be on April 1st, and then she was born on late Friday the 13th.
Ah.
Telling you. Yeah.
Yeah. Which one would you prefer?
Either way, trouble.
So do you have actually a favorite book in the Bible? Like, is there one that you remember the most fondest?
Probably because of the work I did on it would have been Isaiah with the whole seraphim and just that imagery. Just talking about sci-fi imagery, So yeah, I probably Isaiah. There was what you have Deuteros Isaiah. You have everybody gets a little crazy with this stuff. But, yeah, I got down into the weeds, but it's still, even though I maybe had a bit too much of it, I still like it.
Yeah, well, it's like to me, it's Jeremiah, and I'd love to even do more in it because I liked it because of the different writers, and sort of piecing it together, and they don't really follow each other properly. The story's mixed up, but it's so to me, it's so funny at times too. It's like I keep saying that, it's like Jeremiah, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. You turn the page, he's doing it.
Yeah. Like somebody I know. Yeah, they're human stories, aren't they? I mean, you can see, yeah.
Well, it's got everything. Like, yeah, because that's what I've said before in videos. It's like, you don't have to be religious. You don't have to be a Christian to enjoy it because, yeah, it's got every human potential story that you would want in there. It's everything. There's love, there's hatred, there's murder, adultery, you name it, everything that you can think of, and all the above, and even more that most people can't even think of.
What's that old cartoon where they got Moses coming off the mountain, and it says underneath it with the 15 commandments, and then you see he drops one of the 10 commandments. Yeah. None of this stuff is new.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I you look at other literature in the Western tradition, but not just the Western tradition.
Yeah.
It does help to have you pick up a little more, maybe. There's because a lot of people were immersed in this for a very long time. And a lot of people still are. So
yeah. Well, and the other thing is too, I like learning other stuff around the time, like Zoroastrianism, and then you learn the Babylonian sort of traditions, and you realize that that's where they were exiled sort of to Babylonia, and chances are that's where they got the sort of the flood story from Gilgamesh and all this kind of stuff, and the Zoroastrianism coming in later with Satan, the devil, and all this stuff. It's just fabulous stuff. And then you got all the not just the Dead Sea Scrolls, but all the other stuff, the Apocrypha and everything. It's all amazing stuff. It's
yep. What is it Joseph Campbell said? He used to have a little ditty he did. Give me that old time religion.
Oh yeah.
And we used to do it just like Zarathustra. Rabusta. It's all, yeah, he loved that stuff, but
yeah, no, it's fabulous. And I keep thinking that every so often I come across the book and I go, I wouldn't mind getting back into it, but it's like, it's usually not just like, probably for you and me, it's the same. It's not just one book that you would want and get. It's like once you start on that road, you start with a lot of stuff going back. And
a huge, obviously, theological library, and it's gone now. It's 3 shelves now, but you can get again into the weeds like anything you study. I mean, I'm sure if you're a biologist and you go in your house and be, So, but yeah, every once in a while I'd like to go and pick something up and look it up, and they're gone.
Yeah, I always sort of thought, like, because Jeremiah, I would love to have a good Jeremiah library, like every commentary that was done on Jeremiah throughout the the centuries or millennia, and that would be cool.
Somebody did it, and I can't remember. His first name's almost in my head here. Who did an archaeology of Jeremiah? It's a
Oh,
built around the idea of Jeremiah, the time, what kinds of evidence you're drawing. He's not trying to prove anything about Jeremiah. He's using Jeremiah as a jumping off place for that era and
right.
draw things in, So
Oh,
I can't remember his name. Just gone. You probably find it online.
yeah, it doesn't ring a bell, but yeah, it's something that. See, see, this is the problem with doing these. I keep getting something that's too tempting to not look at, and that's one of them. So I am going to look that up.
Yeah, I remember what it was. It's of course I used to have every biblical archaeology book there was. I think so. It used to be easy to pick up.
Yeah, lots of things. That's why, like, I used to have a huge, like, the two things that I had was archaeology, travel, like exploration and science fiction. That was most of my library, that stuff that I kept, and I had huge amounts for it because I loved, excavation reports, and they're just fun to go through, and it's the driest thing that you could ever have.
Right, especially in the Near East.
Yeah.
It goes with the territory.
But they're still fun, like I remember getting the French. I had to get them out of the library, the French volumes of Deir el Medina in Egypt, and it was amazing that I don't know French, but I knew enough archaeology that I could, with a dictionary, I was able to figure out stuff, and then the
Beginning that'll help you out,
Yeah. And then the Megiddo, I used to have photocopies of the Megiddo volumes, and I loved going through those. Yeah.
I think the only ones I have left are I can't even remember the site. Dr. Masson in Russia I worked with. He worked in Central, and I have a lot of those. And then I used to have, remember the Teotihuacan project?
Yeah.
Well, Bob Stanley was one of the guys that I trained under, and he worked under the guy who led the mapping project. So I really like the Mayan stuff. But then the people come home from a dig, and they all got like 15 different kinds of parasites. I was in there going, I don't know.
Well, I got some parasites for going to Jordan and Egypt. They didn't. I knew I had them when I came back, but they went dormant for 10 years, and then they came out with a. They were very prolific 10 years later.
What was it? Linda Shield, the one who was one of the ones she wrote. Really famous one. The title's gone again. Her and she co-wrote, and she had been one of the early. The big breakthrough on the Mayan glyphs.
Yeah.
She was really involved with the modern breakthrough, and one of those killed her. It took her life. And so, it can be dangerous even if there aren't tomb robbers. I mean, you're out in the middle of a jungle or something.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I was mine was probably caught because it was basically they identified the parasite. It was an intestinal parasite because I was working on a Tel Jawa, it was called, not the Basalt City, but an Iron Age Tel. It's now a housing division or a housing estate or whatever you want to call it. But there was a family that had it, and they had goats. So you're digging through, goats, poop, and I must have got stuff on my hand because you don't always, either you rubbed yourself or something like that. So the parasite that I got was something that was through goat feces. So it was like, yeah, that's pretty clear of where I got that. you know.
Right, right. Can be an expert in coprolites.
Yeah. Yeah, I always love that. I keep remembering a exam question that I suggested for a professor one time, because like what the questions were like, what's an ecofact and what's artifact, and the question was coprolite. Is it an artifact or an ecofact?
There you go.
It's man-made.
Hey, myself. All right,
Yeah.
move on to the next one here. We can't. How are we going to do better than coprolites?
No.
So the next one's this, and this has actually been through a few booktubers' hands. This was gifted to me, but I love Conan. I don't think I've read them all in a long time. I randomly go through, and of course I read the comic books. I read the Dark Horse, the Marvel, all that. So I and of course all the movies and stuff, and I just always had a soft spot for. It would have been hard for me because I grew up with these and Edgar Rice Burroughs, Tarzan, and John Carter of Mars. Any of these types of things probably would have worked here. I just had the single volume of this, and what I grabbed.
Is that the one that Jason had that was sent to Steve?
Yeah. They each have little squigglies and hex signs. No. Yeah.
Sigils.
Yeah. I look into it and it says beware.
Yeah, Michael K. Vaughan will like that one, I think. It's Conan is a bit strange for me because I had read stuff in the probably early 80s, and it turned out I didn't know at the time that it was the stuff that L. Sprague de Camp, rewrote and Lynn Carter. I like those. And then earlier this year for fantasy February fantasy store or whatever we did, I started reading some of the originals because I got the first volume, the Del Rey paperback, and I didn't really care for them for some reason, and because there was stuff in there that I liked, but it didn't deal with that. Like it was so much interesting stuff, but it concentrated more on the the swords and swashbuckler, not swashbuckler, but you know what I mean. And I found that interesting. Like, as a kid, if I would have read them probably at the time, I would have liked them for that. But now I wanted the other stuff that they didn't deal with. And I'm sure it deals with some of that stuff in other stories, but I read maybe 5 or 6 and I go, they didn't really, turn my crank at the moment. But I do want to revisit, and I want to revisit some of his other material as well, like the non-Conan stuff.
Yeah, I don't think any of us would be reading. I know this is going to be heresy and somebody's going to fall out of their chair screaming, but without L. Sprague Camp and Lynn Carter and all these guys, we'd be reading really different stuff. And I'm not sure this would have been put together like this. Something had to keep it alive. And when I was younger, it was L. Sprague Camp and Brethren. And they and sometimes they saw flaws for their market at the time, and sometimes they finished stories. They did. I have no problem with that. I mean, to be a purist, fine, if that's what you want to be, but I'm not.
Yeah, well, I think because the stuff that I liked, I remember a few of the stories that I read in February that they started talking about, the mythology that was happening in these creatures. There was a huge snake or something like that, and it started talking about the sorcery and stuff like that. And I go, ooh, that I found very interesting, but it was cut off.
Yeah,
and I think the Al Sprague de Camp stuff, if I remember right, but it's so long ago. It's 40 years ago. I think he expanded on that stuff a little more.
He was a different kind of storyteller, right?
Yeah. Well, he also did a really good going back to archaeology. He did one. What was it? Ancient Evenings or something like that? Or sorry, Ancient Engineer. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
That
that was really good.
was the first one I owned. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that one, and I think that's where I first encountered L. Sprague de Camp. I didn't know he was a fiction writer, and I had that, and then I found out that he wrote other stuff.
Yeah. I ran into Robert Silverberg because I read The Mound Builders,
Oh yeah,
and that's still a good archaeology book. A little dated, but well written.
yeah. No, he did stuff, and like yeah, well he did all the sort of soft core porn as well, under the.
Never read. My kids are watching.
Yeah, and he's still the old bugger's still writing. He's what is he, 90 some years old, and he's still pumping out stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't. I know he's a grandmaster, and I still think he's short on recognition that he deserves.
Yeah,
put out so much.
Well, it was like I remember reading about him, and I forget where it was. It might have been actually in the Asimov autobiography, where it was talking about Silverberg, Randall Garrett, and Harlan Ellison living in the same apartment building, and Silverberg, Silverberg and Garrett would write stories. Like one would stay up all night and finish it, or one or the other thing. But they wrote so much stuff that they had to use. They were writing 3 or 4 stories a day, and they were selling this stuff under all these pseudonyms that, like, Silverberg doesn't even know how many things that he wrote.
Some editor 100 years from now is going to go crazy.
Yeah.
All right, let me grab the last one here if I can get it. I got to get it by all this stuff. All right, this one's a little different. This is Yale University Press. It's the Ambon Curiosity Cabinet, and it's about a guy named G.E. Rumphius, also known as the Indian Pliny, because he was a great tropical naturalist in the 17th century, born in Germany, and spent most of his life in the employ of the Dutch East Indies Company. They've got a good history of him in here, and a lot of the natural history from that region he was the first to describe. And I thought it would be fun, basically, because of where you're dropping us down, right?
Yeah.
The middle, I'm assuming in the Pacific or something. And so it seemed like it'd be just a good idea to have not an up-to-date, field guide, but something where you had interesting and you could do the natural history. So that's why I picked that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, but there was a lot of stuff like that, compendiums or like these curiosity cabinet type things, which are really, really cool. I've got something that's sort of similar. It's a huge. It doesn't have the illustration as much, but it's a dictionary of science and technology. But it's from like late 1700s, I think, which is really cool. Just it's a reprint, obviously, but it's really cool, and those things are neat, because it's sort of like what's that Universal Encyclopedia? Who was that by? That was French.
And all those guys.
Sorry.
Diderot and all them.
Yeah. Diderot. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think of him. Yeah. I couldn't think of his name. But yeah, no, that was really fantastic. How did you get a hold of that one? Like or did you know about it?
Actually, it's an off the wall thing because a lady I know, Sally Harris, is a designer or was for Yale University Press. So for the 30 or 40-year history, if you see a Yale University Press book, which I do and I find, I'll look in for the book designer because they usually would say who it was, and because I know her, I started collecting books when I would find that with her name in it. And this was one. She was, Yale University Press had a golden age, starting, I would say, in the 50s. And then, of course, their big breakthrough was when they expanded into the UK market. They have a big presence over there. So you started really getting these interesting, wonderful writers. And of course, I'm hoping someday to finish my T.S. Eliot collection. I wish I finished that. I don't know what's going on there. You have that, right?
Yeah, I'm behind. I got volume 7, I think, of the letters. Volume 9 has been put out here, I think, and maybe volume 10 coming up. But I also got the his prose. I got his prose collection, and that's nice. But it's not very well made. The binding is pretty iffy, and the paper is not great. Even though it's is it Princeton, or I'm not sure if it's Princeton or it's an American university one, and for some reason Faber and Faber aren't doing it here. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. The licensing on these things can get really weird.
Yeah, they've licensed whatever this, if it's Princeton or whatever, or is it Yale or Harvard? It could be. I can't remember, but
yeah,
they.
But I think Princeton did the. I'm thinking somebody down, so it must be Princeton. I would think.
Yeah.
I might be wrong.
Yeah, and they've because they first said that they weren't going to do it in print. It's an online thing. You can pay a fee and do this. So they're always adding stuff, but it's like, yeah, I don't want that. I want the book. I want to be able to look through and read essays and so forth. But yeah, I've got his yeah, the only thing that I think now is just getting his the rest of his letters. I don't know if he had diaries. I don't know if there's diaries or not.
Oh, I don't know. I know I love the letters. I enjoy it. And I'd like to have all the other stuff, but again, the dollar signs start, So.
Yeah, I was lucky because they were very cheap in comparison, and I was able to pay it off slowly. So that worked out. But what I want to get now is, because I almost have the complete Auden, and I like Steve got the Steve Donahue got the 2 poetry ones. I need that to complete the set, because I've got everything. All his stuff, his librettos, his radio plays, his essays, and now I just need the 2 volumes of poetry.
Yeah, I like the connecting the names when you're reading the letters.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you start realizing how connected. I've been reading the Evelyn Waugh biography, which is a little tough to take. He's a different character than I am. Let's put it that way. And but you start. Well, I don't live in England. I don't know everybody he was into, and who he knew, but I've been reading these kinds of letters for so long, all of a sudden a light bulb will go off, and these people are all connected. And
yeah,
classically, well, number one, because both sides of the pond.
Yeah.
People everywhere, so that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like I've said before, like if you just even go back a little before them into the late like 1890s to 1910 and that up into the 20s. It's just like every time you read someone and there's a connection with somebody else, like with other ones, like, oh, he was a friend of like Robert Louis Stevenson. He stayed at his house or something like that, and then it just continues on. And Eliot's, especially with him being, Faber and Faber, those letters are going to be it's going to be so many authors, and he does deal with that. But you've got part of the Hemingway letters too, don't you? You got a set
on, and I want to get the next 2 so on the Hemingway letters. So yeah, I'd really like, because that's a classic case. Now it's so international. You're dealing with people, and that's the way the world was. So it's a good reflection, not just France, but Cuba, Great Britain, United States, Canada. I mean, you think of where Hemingway grew up. He grew up, in Illinois, but he spent a lot of time on the Upper Peninsula in Michigan and hunting and fishing. And so you're getting a different group, and you're getting that jazz age is what everybody thinks. But you actually it's wider.
Yeah.
And talk about another guy who's a piece of work.
Yeah, I'm now quite sure I don't really care for Hemingway's novels, especially some of the short stories I like, but I am really curious about the letters because of that, because of who he corresponded with. And that's the great stuff. Like, I don't know if you've got the Evelyn Waugh letters, like there's several volumes. They are amazing too.
Yeah, I find that I like this stuff. I've got a sweet tooth for it. Probably mostly a lot of it got fired up because what was it, in the 1950s or 40s, they found all that stuff from James Boswell that Pottle at Yale started. Yeah. So I read the London Journal. It was a bit of a shock.
Yeah. Nothing's really new. The depravity is not new.
Well, okay, I'll read the next one. So I actually so far, and I know this is heresy, and we got to have at least 8 of them on this show, right? I actually like those even better than I like the Life of Johnson. Really, something so rotten about that guy. All right, Johnson comes off as a little bit of a paragon, right?
Yeah.
Those two guys can't be hanging out together and both be paragons, or even one paragon.
Yeah. Well, I've got here, I've dug out, well, it's too buried now, but it's at the bottom of a pile here. I've got 3 volumes of Johnson's letters. It's an old one, and they're really good. But there's a new one that I think that's 7 volumes. And so there's a lot more than that's in there, but yeah, those are great. And yeah, the journals ones, oh, I wish I had those again. I loved the dust jackets on them, the Pottle ones, the Harvard. Lovely.
I went up to Maine this last summer, and I'd gone to the Big Chicken Barn, which is a very famous bookstore up there. It's massive. You'd love the place. And I got Pottle's biography, which is only the first part of Boswell's life, and then somebody else did the second one. I've heard the second one's good too. I've never seen it, but and I found out that Pottle, who did all this and did all the publishing on this, was actually from a little town in Maine. He went to New Haven, Connecticut, and all that, the bigger place. But it was sort of a nice little thing when you're driving through the town to say, oh, okay, but. Can you imagine him when he first opened some of this stuff up? Oh, I don't even know if I can use this.
Well, it's even Pepys's diaries. It's like, yeah. Usually they've.
At least that was in code.
Yeah, but they usually censor. They've always censored them. I've got the 12 volume. I think the paperback version actually is corrected or added a bit of things, but I don't want to have both. I have the nice hardcover set, and I've never read it all, but I've read chunks of it, and yeah, it's not. There aren't extended periods of salaciousness like the London Journal.
Right.
There's some of that in there. You just go, wow.
Yeah. I always did the Pepys was for the maritime history because he was actually quite an accomplished man. But Steve Donahue gave me the shorter Pepys.
Yeah.
That one's actually pretty good. I mean, I have a couple volumes of the older editions that, like you say, are toned down a bit. But yeah. And the Great London Fire and all that stuff's in there, so it's
the BBC did they did 15-minute segments, I think, of his diary throughout his life in little bits, and they're really good because there's some of the funny ones because like he's worried about his books while he's dying, and the fire and stuff, and there's the cheese, and also too where his neighbor has sort of worked it out so his sewage comes into his house, Pepys's house, and they're wondering what's that smell.
Hardball is not new.
Yeah, no. But yeah, no, that stuff's great. Yeah, the shorter peeps. There's a what is it? There's a 3 or 4 of those by the same guy that did it. There's the peeps. Oh, I can't remember, but they're really good because they're good um selections, but they also are illustrated. But then there's another one. There's a later one that's a shorter peeps that most people have. I have an illustrated one. I think Steve showed that one time too. I picked that up a couple years ago for £1, I think. So I couldn't pass it up. Even got the whole thing.
I mean, if I was going to get into more detailed stuff, you can get the bigger collections, and it'd be nice, but there's only so much room in the house, so the shorter are nice to have.
Yeah, that like for me, like I said, I need to downsize, not downsize so much, but I need to get rid of to make space for other stuff, and it's those kind of things because I want to keep the peeps, I want to keep the Elliot, I want to keep collections of letters and things like that, and add to a few things because I've got like 15 volumes of the Carlisle and Jane Welsh Carlisle letters. It's like 40 some volumes in total.
Right.
These people just wrote like you wouldn't believe. And when you get Carlisle talking about Charles Lamb, he hated Charles Lamb. He just why do people think he's so great? Why is he so funny? He's just a drunkard. And all that kind of stuff.
Carlisle a lot because, of course, I read a lot of Emerson.
Yeah.
And both men really seem to hit it off, seem to really like each other. And, of course, a huge influence on the rest of the writers around them. You know, I was brought over here because of that. And, of course, trips were made back and forth. So it's always interesting to me, but I only get it from one little slice because I don't have those letters. So.
Yeah, they're fun. I think that we've definitely went off target enough here, maybe.
So you want the album?
Yeah, this is nice.
Heard of. I got as random and far out as I could. Tried to say something I know Shawn has never ever heard of. So I thought, well, 18, 14, we took. No, I'm not going to do that one. I'll get even wilder.
Gord.
I know you know it by heart. But hey, if I'm going to sit on why not listen to the Canadian Railroad trilogy on a desert island, right?
Yeah, and the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald as well. Just the haunting sound of those are just, yeah. He's an unsung lyricist, I think, because everybody has done his stuff, but younger people don't even know, I don't think, who he is.
Yeah, I remember of course, I grew up. I was born in early 1960s, and I was a teenager in the 70s. I mean, in high school in the 70s. We used to drive around in our cars, and you'd have an 8-track tape and Gordon Lightfoot in New England. We actually thought he was from New England. It was a stunning blow to my ego when I found he wasn't even close. But he played he was famous. He was discovered in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Playing upstairs in some bar that was really famous.
Yeah, well, he grew up in Aurelia. He was from Aurelia in Ontario, and it's just, yeah, it's fabulous stuff. And I could see that because like I've been to New England, I've been to Vermont a little bit, and like we don't in Northern Ontario and stuff, there isn't as high in mountains, but there is that kind of feeling, and I think that's where he tapped into. So anywhere where there's going to be lots of trees and hilly, it will work.
Yeah, I was really sort of happy to hear about it. I've been a big fan as a songwriter of Chris Christopherson, and they're best friends. Yeah, so these are two guys who really know how to write a tune. Now, Gordon Lightfoot, some people are not going to agree with me, but I think Gordon Lightfoot's a way better singer than Chris Christopherson.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I agree.
they're both great songwriters. So yeah, that would be. Yeah. In fact, I think after Chris Christopherson did a movie in Vermont called The Rivers Flow North, I think is the name of it.
Like,
And he was out in the woods and had to get into crawl position or something like that. And then years later, he got deathly ill. It ended up he had Lyme's disease. He got bit by a tick.
yeah.
They thought he was going to die. Nobody diagnosed it, which was typical back then. And I know when he recovered, and they finally were figuring stuff out, he was talking about, and it was after Johnny Cash had died, but his big plan was to meet up with Gordon Lightfoot in Canada. That was what his thing is. I got to go up one more time. I got to go see him. So, yeah, they're all just like books, connections everywhere, right?
Yeah. I saw Gordon Lightfoot at the Massey Hall in Toronto sometime. It would have been in the mid or late 80s. So that was I have seen him live, which was really fantastic. But there's other great Canadian writers like songwriters. What's the country guy? He's from out west. Oh, geez, I'm forgetting his name now. I just had it.
Oh, I know who you mean. And it's gone.
Ian Tyson.
Yeah.
Ian Tyson is a fabulous singer and songwriter.
Boy, right? Isn't he a cowboy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a really big song. I forget the title of it. I had a friend who said, Mark, you like all this stuff? And he gave me a CD. He burned himself. I'm going, oh, this is awesome. Yeah, so I know who you mean.
Yeah. I didn't really care for his wife, Sylvia Tyson. I didn't care for her voice or their stuff together. But a more recent one that he did was really good. It was about it was called Claude Dallas. And it was about this guy who wanted to live out, off grid and all this kind of stuff. But I guess in the early 80s or maybe late 70s. And the police came and he shot several of them. And he was on the run. And he wrote it as if he was the sort of the last outlaw, like in the sense of Marty Robbins kind of, ballad type things. And it's a haunting song as well. The guy wasn't a nice person, I don't think, but the Claude Dallas, but it's a great song.
I love it. You mentioned Marty Robbins. The first time I drove through El Paso, I was driving a truck. You know what I put on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, another Canadian would be Leonard Cohen.
Yeah. I wasn't too. Yeah, he's a good songwriter. I don't like his singing, but he's a great songwriter. Another one, Neil Young as well. Neil Young is another one that's like a lot of people have done their songs, and they're just like all over the world. These things. So, but yeah, I was just talking to somebody like it's not Canadian, but Don Williams. I'm sure you know Don Williams.
Most smooth, perfect voices in the world ever.
Yeah, he could sing the telephone book, and it would work.
Yeah. I still listen. Yeah.
I like Good Old Boys Like Me.
You know what the inside of that pickup must sound like.
Yeah. But he was huge. It was weird because I was sharing I live in shared houses. And there were several African people from I think Nigeria. There were different places in Africa, and they knew who he was because he was huge in Africa.
That's something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had more people going to his concerts in Africa than I think anywhere else.
Who is the guy that used to? I think he was from Kenya. Used to whistle. Roger Whittaker.
Roger Whittaker, yeah. Well, was he from Kenya or he did a lot of stuff with South Africa as well? But yeah, Roger Whittaker, yeah.
He used to pack the place up. I don't know if anybody listens to him now, but he used to pack the places. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked his voice. Yeah. It's amazing how these right. Well, we're sort of from the same generation, so there's going to be a lot of crossovers there. except that you're a lot older than I am.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. The screen goes funny. I tried to get my son. He's interested. He's at that age where he's interested in World War II and military stuff.
Yeah.
And I had to find him a video of Sink to Bismarck.
Oh.
I couldn't get it anywhere. I think we finally found it, but yeah. So he actually enjoyed it. I mean, I think that stuff works if you have a background for it, So
yeah. Well, my dad loved Johnny Horton, and I grew up listening to it. And like there's the Battle of New Orleans. There's the book.
Word too.
Sorry.
I remember every word.
Yeah.
It's just drilled in, like you were saying earlier about the Hebrew alphabet.
Yeah. But these were things that I listened to this and I wanted to know, was he singing about real events? And that actually, when I was a kid, that was the first thing that got me interested in history, because I started reading some history to see if he was talking about the real thing.
I can see you now looking at the book going, is this where the gator loses his mind?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no. Then for the American version, they what did they change the British version? The bloody Brit. We caught the bloody British, and they changed it to some other words for the British version. They took out the bloody.
Yeah. I wonder how much they whitewash history over there.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's great. Like, what's the one about the horse? He's got one about horse. I can't remember the name of it. Is it not? Yeah, there's one about a horse. It's just a whole song about a horse, and it's really good. And then you got Johnny Red. Wow, you got all this stuff. Just great stuff. Anyway, yeah, we're going way off topic here. So we got your luxury item now.
All right. So Scott Daniels just knocked me out of the park the first time with that doggone telescope, because I'm sitting there going, I know what I got. So, I didn't want to pick something he picked. So I gave him second best because I actually use the 10 power binoculars at night, because an astronomy friend of mine told me, hey, just grab a pair of these. They'll start you off good. And me and the kids will go out, on the porch if it's a brilliant night, because we have no light pollution here. I mean, the village I live in, 250 people, and the town I live in, which means little hamlets scattered around.
Yeah.
So, what the night sky's like. You've seen it yourself. So the binoculars work well. And on a desert island, that the nighttime sky is going to be gorgeous. So I want to see the bad guys coming around the other side of the island too. I'll be prepared. But binoculars, I actually, find them. My wife uses them for bird watching and stuff. So.
Yeah, they. I don't have any now. Well, I'm living in the city, and you just don't have. You can't see the night sky half. Like, it's not a city, but it's big enough to cause a lot of light pollution. But the island, like everybody's asking, like somehow it's developed into, well, it's a multi-dimensional island, so everybody's on the same island in different dimensions, and somehow there is a portal there as well that somebody is able to actually watch classic films. So like Matt at Science Fiction Reads says, he wanted a telescope, but he thought, well, because he's got the portal, then he'll call up Scott, and then Scott can show him.
Yeah. Well, you let me, have some of your raw fish over there, and I'll give you a telescope for an hour. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So So and also too, this is great, Mark. I'm glad finally got you to do it. But this is the last one for the year as well. This is number 28, I think. Wow. And because Sunday for the next 2 weeks are Christmas Day and New Year's Day.
Right.
And this will appear, this is the latest one that I've ever done, I think. So this will appear tomorrow, less than 24 hours after recording it. and I'm not sure when I'll bring it back in January. I might take a little hiatus for a while. We'll see. Because there's a lot of technical issues that I don't really care for, but that's not what this is about. It's more about, talking and just going on tangents. That's what it seems like a lot as well.
That's because that's what you do if you're sitting down having a beer together.
Yeah.
That's the way humans are, right?
So you mentioned for the new year you're doing the Great Pirate Project. Crikey, yeah. My brain's not allowing me to say that. And that's going to be just sort of ongoing, is it, for the whole year or whenever?
I'll try to come once a month or so. Other people are joining in. Some are, and it's sort of a loose umbrella. There's no schedule. I just got interested in the pirate stuff and building up the collection because I do a lot of maritime stuff. And I knew there was a lot of stuff I hadn't read and basic stuff that I wanted to get to. So I just put it under that hashtag and just people make videos as they wish, and you can find it with no schedule. There's no. I like that looser thing because then it, something goes off, you're really not wrecking the project,
Yeah, that's what I'm sort of doing. I'm gonna have some things that I'm reading myself, but I'm not making it a official thing myself because I don't know what's gonna happen. And for the last year and a half, I know for a fact that there's going to be times where I can't do anything health wise. But you're also doing the you're saying the Audrey Matron stuff, but you're also doing a hornblower too, aren't you?
Yeah, the Hornblower 2023. I think that's hashtag too. I'm doing it with Faith in Books. It was her idea, and she asked me to join in, and then anybody else who wants to join in. We're doing the C.S. Forester books in the order that's logical within the lifetime of the character.
Yeah.
Because he went back, I think, like Mr. Midshipman and Hornblower was published way after some of the other stuff. I've always liked them. I think they're very accessible read, and they're easy to find. I don't know how copy made, but you can get a copy or use paperback or something for almost nothing. So, and they're a quick afternoon read. They're not involved, and I like them. I really enjoy them, and I do revisit them. I thought that it was BBC, right, that did the great.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful series, I thought. So
here's what I found.
See, my watch just says found something on C.S. Forester. Don't tell it to. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So.
Yeah, Mark, I think at Book Time with Elvis said that he was going to join in with that as well.
Yeah, he's a good book.
Yeah, I would like to. I just don't have any copies of it because I've realized after looking at it, I thought I had read them all, but I haven't. There's ones that I haven't read. Okay.
Well, hop in for the ones you haven't read.
Well, I don't even remember details of the ones I read, so I'll have to see. I'm not sure. When do you start? That's not start and read immediately, is it? Is it going to be later?
We start in January, but I think we're going to have read it by the end of the month. It's another one that's sort of designed like that to try to make it easy on everybody.
Yeah.
4-week period, you get a chance to knock out one, like I say, an afternoon novel, not anything in depth. And I found that there was a year or so there in BookTube where I committed to too much. And I just, because of life and the schedules, it's just too hard to be too structured for me right now.
Yeah.
So open-ended things where, in January, I'm going to read Mr. Midshipman Hornblower. Not really a challenge. You have 5 or 6 different things going at once. It starts piling up fast,
Yeah, I'm still working on the Future History project, which I'm going to continue, but I'm basically doing it myself. I think everybody else has dropped out because it's so big, but
huge. I mean, I was with you for part of it, and it's so interesting that I found that I was really enjoying your stuff. because I couldn't keep up. There was no way. It was just, and that really taught me a lesson. Number one, these ambitious things for the creator work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you jump on them, if they're that massive, enjoy the ride as much as you can. You know,
Yeah.
and I saw some stuff and learned some stuff. And the robot stories, there was so much I hadn't read that I thought I had. And not, and then listening to everybody talk and trying to talk about them myself, I think that was probably one of my more enjoyable things I did last year.
Yeah, I'm really close to. I got one more of the. I haven't done a video for Currents of Space, but I've got the last Empire novel to do, and I think the next one's going to be. I'm into the Foundation books now, or I will be. So so I've come that far, but there's still quite a bit to do. And yeah, I've got a lot of things that I want to do next year, but they're going to be over months because I'm like they're series of books, and as you say, I'm going to do them once a month. So if I screw up and I can't do anything myself, I can catch up, by this. But doing one of these things a week, like I was doing at the rate that I was going, it was a recipe for disaster. That was clear.
It's BookTube. It's a fun thing to do, but it's just like if you're at work, you don't want to bury yourself in work. You want to enjoy the process.
Yeah. So so I'm revamping how I do things. I'll be joining with stuff because I think we're still going to do the August of Adventures, Mark and I, and I'm definitely going to be doing some like what's her name
You're doing one with Brandy, right? Or did you already do that?
Well, we're doing Hal Clement at the moment. Yeah, and that'll be finished. I'm not reading as much as I wanted to for that, but that'll be finished in January. But there'll be something else coming up in April and May that we're doing vampires. So, but she hasn't mentioned that yet, and I'm only going to participate a little bit. But I was just thinking, Mary Kingsley. That's the ones. So the two books on her for August of Adventures that I want to read. Reread some African exploration for the adventure thing. So
Burton right now.
Sorry?
I'm reading some Richard Burton right now.
Oh yeah. Oh, are you? Okay.
I have it over here. I put it behind me, but yeah, I like that stuff. But I'll probably do Sag Along again. Because I've been with that since the beginning. But that's the only other thing I can really.
Yeah, every time that I've tried to do that, there's always something happens. So I'm not even going to touch that this year. I don't think.
Yeah, it's been going on a long time. We've had that, I think, 5 years. So, and then I'll do the adventures because, that's us putting candy in front of you, saying, yeah, that works for me. I had so much fun with the Treasure Island. That was just fantastic.
Yeah, so we haven't really talked about exactly what we're going to do, but I know I'm going to do nonfiction, and there's I got a whole stack of stuff, but I don't know how much I'm going to get to. But if I can get to rereading the two Mary Kingsley volumes, I also have Gertrude Bell's 2 volumes of letters that I picked up a while ago. Those are really good. I've only had snippets of them.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that. I'd be interested about that.
Yeah, she's quite interesting. But anyway, we're now an hour and a half. So again, thank you, Mark, for this. And I figured I would indulge a little bit for myself with this since it's the last one of the year. So we went on to, a little more tangents.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
Stick around for a bit. But yeah, bye, everybody. We'll see you next year.